There is a stage you cannot see, but you stand upon it every single day. The lights are always on. The audience never leaves. And you, whether you know it or not, are performing. This is not a metaphor. This is the architecture of human civilization. Morality is not a compass. It is not a truth written in the stars or carved into the bones of the earth. Morality is a script. And like all scripts, it was written by someone with an agenda. You were taught to believe in good and evil as if they were forces of nature, immutable and eternal. But if you truly pause and look beneath the surface of every moral proclamation you've ever heard, you will find something far more unsettling. You will find theater. You will find performance. You will find masks so convincing that even the actors forget they are acting. The villain in this theater is not who you think. The villain is the one the audience believes. The one who plays the role so perfectly that no one questions the script. And the most dangerous part? The villain often believes their own performance. They have convinced themselves that the mask is their face. This is the world you inhabit. A world where morality is the stage, society is the audience, and every single person you meet is both actor and spectator, judge and judged, hero and villain, sometimes within the span of a single breath. Before we continue, a warning. The knowledge that's about to be shared cannot be unlearned. It will permanently change the way you see human relationships. If you're ready to abandon comfortable illusions and see what's behind the stage, subscribe now. Because this isn't just a video. It's the beginning of your journey under the mask. Now let us begin. Picture a child, no more than 7 years old, standing in a kitchen. The air smells of burnt toast and disappointment. The child's mother is crying, but quietly, the kind of crying that happens when you've learned that loud emotions are punished. The father sits at the table, newspaper in hand, silent. The child watches both of them and learns the first lesson of moral theater. Silence is complicity. Tears are weakness. And the person who controls their expression controls the room. The child does not yet have the language for what they are witnessing, but their nervous system is recording every detail. The tension in the mother's shoulders. The deliberate rustle of the newspaper, timed perfectly to drown out a sob. The way the father's jaw tightens, not with anger, but with satisfaction. He is winning a game the child cannot yet name. Years later, this child will grow into an adult who understands power not as force, but as performance. They will learn that morality is not about being good. It is about appearing good to the right people at the right time. They will learn that the villain is not the one who does harm. The villain is the one who gets caught, the one who fails to control the narrative, the one whose mask slips at the wrong moment. This is not cynicism. This is observation. This is what happens when you stop listening to what people say and start watching what they do. When you stop believing in the script and start studying the stage. Society teaches you morality through stories. The hero saves the village. The villain burns it down. The hero is selfless. The villain is selfish. The hero sacrifices. The villain takes. These stories are so deeply embedded in your consciousness that you never question them. You never ask who wrote them. You never ask why. But if you dig beneath the surface, if you examine the bones of these moral tales, you find something remarkable. You find that every moral system ever created serves one primary function. Control. Not control of behavior, necessarily, but control of perception. Control of the narrative. Control of who gets to decide what good and evil mean. Consider the concept of selflessness. You are taught from birth that selflessness is virtuous. To give without expecting return. To sacrifice your needs for others. To put yourself last. This sounds beautiful. It sounds noble. But watch what happens when you practice it. Watch who benefits. There is a woman, let's call her Elena, who spent 30 years of her life being selfless. She raised 4 children, cared for aging parents, supported a husband through career changes and personal crises. She never complained. She never asked for anything in return. She wore the mask of the selfless mother, the devoted wife, the dutiful daughter. And society applauded her. They called her a saint. They held her up as an example of moral virtue. But inside, beneath the mask, Elena was disappearing. Her desires, her dreams, her very sense of self eroded year by year, sacrifice by sacrifice. And when she finally, at 53 years old, said the word no for the first time in decades, when she chose herself for once, society turned on her with a viciousness that took her breath away. Her children called her selfish. Her husband called her cruel. Her friends whispered that she was having a breakdown, that she had changed, that she was no longer the woman they knew. And they were right. She was no longer that woman. She had removed the mask. and the audience hated her for it. This is the truth about moral theater. The audience does not want authenticity. The audience wants performance. They want you to play your role. And if your role is selfless martyr, then you must suffer beautifully, quietly, without ever demanding that the script be rewritten. Elena's story is not unique. It is the story of every person who has ever been punished for stepping out of their assigned moral role. The mother who chooses career over children. The man who cries in public. The employee who refuses to work unpaid overtime. The friend who sets boundaries. These people are not immoral. They are simply refusing to perform. And in the theater of society, refusing to perform is the greatest sin. Now let us examine the other side of this stage. Let us look at the villains who win. The ones the audience believes. The ones who understand that morality is not about being good, but about appearing good. There is a man, we'll call him Marcus, who runs a non-profit organization. On paper, his life is dedicated to helping others. He raises millions of dollars for children in poverty. He gives speeches about compassion and social responsibility. He is photographed with celebrities and politicians, always smiling, always humble, always wearing the mask of the benevolent philanthropist. But behind closed doors, Marcus is a tyrant. He underpays his staff and demands they work 80-hour weeks. He takes credit for their ideas. He fires anyone who questions him. He uses the non-profit's funds for personal luxuries, always careful to stay just within legal boundaries. He manipulates donors with emotional stories, some of which are exaggerated, some of which are entirely fabricated. And yet, Marcus is celebrated. He wins awards. He is invited to speak at conferences. He is held up as a moral exemplar. Why? Because he understands the theater. He knows that morality is not measured by private actions, but by public performance. He knows that the audience cannot see backstage. They only see what he shows them. And what he shows them is a carefully crafted character, a role played so convincingly that even those who suffer under him sometimes doubt their own perceptions. This is the power of moral theater. The villain who masters performance becomes the hero. The hero who refuses to perform becomes the villain. And the audience, the great mass of society, applauds or condemns based not on truth, but on spectacle. You might be thinking, this is too cynical. Surely some people are genuinely good. Surely morality means something beyond performance. And you would be partially right. There are people who act with genuine compassion, who help others without seeking recognition, who live according to principles rather than appearances. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Those people are rarely celebrated. They are rarely visible. Because genuine goodness does not seek the stage. It does not perform. And in a society built on theater, invisibility is irrelevance. The moral exemplars you are shown, the ones held up as models of virtue, are almost always performers. They have to be, because to become visible, to become celebrated, requires understanding the audience. It requires knowing which mask to wear and when to wear it. It requires, in essence, manipulation. This is not a condemnation. This is simply how the system works. Morality, as a social construct, is inseparable from performance. And performance is inseparable from manipulation. To be seen as good, you must convince others of your goodness. And convincing others requires strategy, presentation, and yes, a degree of deception. Let us go deeper. Let us examine why the audience believes the villain. Why the performance is more convincing than the truth. Why society's theater operates on illusion rather than reality. The answer lies in a fundamental aspect of human psychology. People do not want truth. They want comfort. They want stories that confirm what they already believe. They want villains who are obviously villainous and heroes who are obviously heroic. They want a world that makes sense, even if that world is a fiction. When someone plays the role of villain perfectly, when they embody all the traits society has agreed to condemn, the audience feels relief. They can point and say, there is the bad person. There is the source of the problem, and by identifying the villain, they absolve themselves. They are not the villain. They are the audience. They are the judges. They are by default the good ones. This is why moral panic spreads so quickly. This is why witch hunts happen. This is why entire communities can turn against a single person with terrifying speed and unity. Because having a clear villain is psychologically satisfying. It creates order out of chaos. It gives people a target for their fear, their anger, their own unexamined darkness. And the person who understands this, who can position someone else as the villain while maintaining their own mask of virtue, wields enormous power. They become the director of the theater. They control the narrative. They decide who the audience condemns and who the audience celebrates. There is a small town, somewhere in the American Midwest, where this dynamic played out with devastating clarity. A teacher, a woman named Sarah, was accused of inappropriate behavior with a student. The accusation came from a parent, a man named Robert, who was well known in the community. Robert was a church leader, a business owner, a pillar of respectability. When he made the accusation, the town believed him immediately. Sarah denied it. She provided evidence of her innocence. She had witnesses who could account for her whereabouts. But none of it mattered, because Robert had already cast her as the villain. He had already told the story, and the story was more powerful than the facts. Within weeks, Sarah lost her job. Her friends stopped calling. Her neighbors avoided eye contact. She received threatening messages. Someone spray-painted her house. The theater of morality had condemned her, and the audience participated with enthusiasm. 2 years later, the truth emerged. The accusation had been fabricated. Robert's own son, the alleged victim, came forward and admitted that his father had pressured him to lie. Robert had been having an affair with another teacher, and Sarah had discovered it. The accusation was retaliation, a preemptive strike to destroy her credibility before she could expose him. When the truth came out, you might expect the town to rally around Sarah, to apologize, to make amends. But that is not what happened. Instead, there was silence. Uncomfortable, guilty silence. Because admitting they had been wrong would require admitting they had participated in destroying an innocent person. It would require examining their own willingness to believe, their own eagerness to condemn, their own complicity in the theater. Some people apologized privately. Most simply pretended it had never happened. And Robert? He moved to another town, where no one knew his story, and started over. The mask intact. The performance ready to begin again. This is the mechanics of moral theater. The villain who controls the narrative wins. The innocent who cannot perform convincingly loses. And the audience, the great mass of society, moves on to the next show, the next scandal, the next opportunity to feel righteous without examining their own shadows. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow, the part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. The desires we condemn, the impulses we suppress, the aspects of our personality that do not fit the image we want to project. Jung understood that the shadow does not disappear when we ignore it. It simply operates beneath consciousness, influencing our behavior in ways we do not recognize. And here is where moral theater becomes truly dangerous. Because the shadow loves the theater. The shadow loves to project itself onto others, to see in them the darkness we refuse to see in ourselves. This is why the most vocal moral crusaders are so often revealed to be hypocrites. The politician who campaigns against infidelity while having affairs. The religious leader who preaches purity while abusing children. The activist who condemns greed while embezzling funds. These are not anomalies. These are predictable outcomes of a system that rewards performance over authenticity. When you build your identity on a moral mask, when you define yourself by what you are not rather than what you are, the shadow grows stronger. It demands expression, and eventually it finds a way out. But here is the truly insidious part. Even when the mask slips, even when the hypocrisy is exposed, the theater continues. Because the audience needs villains. And a fallen hero makes for excellent drama. The person is condemned, removed from the stage, and replaced. The system remains intact. The performance goes on. There is no escape from this theater as long as you remain unconscious of it. As long as you believe that morality is about being good rather than appearing good, you will be manipulated by those who understand the difference. You will be the audience, applauding and condemning on cue, never realizing that you are part of the show. But what happens when you wake up? What happens when you see the theater for what it is? What happens when you recognize the masks, including your own? This is where the journey becomes dangerous. Because once you see the performance, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand that morality is theater, you face a choice. Do you continue to perform, now with full awareness of the manipulation? Do you remove your mask and face the consequences? Or do you find some third path, some way to navigate the theater without being consumed by it? There is a woman named Diana who discovered the theater at 39 years old. She had spent her entire adult life playing the role of the good person. She volunteered at homeless shelters. She donated to charities. She was kind to everyone she met. She never gossiped. She never complained. She was, by all external measures, a moral exemplar. But inside, Diana was exhausted. She was exhausted from the constant performance, from the pressure to always be kind, always be understanding, always be selfless. She was exhausted from suppressing her anger, her resentment, her very human desire to sometimes be selfish, to sometimes say no, to sometimes prioritize her own needs. And then one day something shifted. She was at a charity gala, surrounded by wealthy people congratulating each other for their generosity, and she felt a wave of disgust so powerful it nearly knocked her over. She looked around the room and suddenly saw the theater. She saw the masks. She saw the performance. She saw that everyone there, including herself, was playing a role. They were not there to help the poor. They were there to be seen helping the poor. They were there to maintain their image, to network, to feel good about themselves without actually changing anything fundamental about the system that created poverty in the first place. Diana left the gala early. She went home and sat in the dark, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Everything she had believed about morality, about goodness, about her own identity, suddenly seemed like a lie. Not a malicious lie, but a lie nonetheless. A story she had been told and had told herself over and over, until she forgot it was a story. In the weeks that followed, Diana went through what can only be described as a moral crisis. She stopped volunteering. She stopped donating. She stopped performing. And the response from her community was immediate and harsh. People who had praised her for years suddenly questioned her character. They asked if she was okay, but the subtext was clear. They were asking if she was still one of them, if she was still playing by the rules. Diana realized something profound during this time. The moral community she had been part of was not actually interested in goodness. They were interested in conformity. They were interested in maintaining the theater. And anyone who stepped out of their role, who questioned the script, was seen as a threat. But Diana also realized something else. She realized that she had been using morality as a shield. By being so visibly, performatively good, she had avoided examining her own shadow. She had avoided confronting the parts of herself that were selfish, angry, resentful, petty. She had projected all of those qualities onto others, onto the bad people, the immoral people, the ones who did not perform as well as she did. This realization was devastating, but it was also liberating, because once Diana acknowledged her shadow, once she stopped trying to be perfectly good and started trying to be authentically human, the exhaustion lifted. She no longer needed to perform. She no longer needed the audience's approval. She could simply be. This did not mean Diana became immoral. It meant she developed a different relationship with morality. She still helped people, but she did it when she genuinely wanted to, not because she was supposed to. She still tried to be kind, but she also allowed herself to be angry when anger was appropriate. She still had principles, but they were her principles, not society's script. And here is what happened. Some people in her life could not handle this change. They drifted away, uncomfortable with her authenticity, preferring the mask they had known. But other people she had never been close to before, were drawn to her. They recognized something real in her, something that had been missing when she was performing. Diana's story illustrates a crucial point. The theater of morality is not inevitable. It is a choice. You can choose to perform, to wear the mask, to play the role society assigns you. Or you can choose to step off the stage. But stepping off the stage has consequences. You lose the audience's approval. You lose the comfort of knowing your place in the social hierarchy. You lose the illusion of moral certainty. What you gain is yourself. Your authentic self, with all its contradictions, all its shadows, all its messy humanity. And you gain the ability to see others clearly, without the distortion of moral theater, without the need to cast them as heroes or villains. Let us now examine the role of guilt in this theater. Guilt is the currency of moral performance. It is what keeps actors in their roles. It is what punishes those who step out of line. It is what maintains the entire system. From childhood, you are taught to feel guilty for certain thoughts, certain desires, certain actions. This guilt is not natural. It is installed. It is a tool of social control, designed to make you police yourself, so that society does not have to police you. Consider sexual guilt. In many cultures, you are taught that certain sexual desires are shameful, that certain expressions of sexuality are immoral. This guilt serves a function. It controls reproduction, it maintains social hierarchies, it reinforces gender roles. But it does not serve you. It does not make you happier or healthier or more fulfilled. It simply makes you easier to control. Or consider the guilt around ambition. Women in particular are often taught to feel guilty for being ambitious, for prioritizing career over family, for wanting power. This guilt keeps them in subordinate roles. It maintains a social order where men dominate public life and women manage private life. The guilt is presented as morality, as natural feminine virtue, but it is simply a mechanism of control. The same pattern repeats across every domain of human life. You are taught to feel guilty for being angry, for being selfish, for setting boundaries, for saying no, for prioritizing your own needs. And this guilt keeps you performing. It keeps you in your role. It keeps the theater running. But what happens when you examine this guilt? What happens when you ask where it came from and who benefits from it? What happens when you realize that much of what you feel guilty about is not actually harmful, not actually immoral, but simply inconvenient for those who benefit from your compliance? This is a dangerous realization, because once you stop feeling guilty, once you stop allowing guilt to control your behavior, you become unpredictable. You become ungovernable. You become a threat to the theater. There is a man named James who grew up in a strict religious household. He was taught that doubt was sin, that questioning was rebellion, that obedience was virtue. He felt guilty for every impure thought, every moment of anger, every flicker of desire that did not align with the teachings of his church. James carried this guilt into adulthood. It shaped his relationships, his career choices, his entire sense of self. He married a woman his family approved of, even though he did not love her. He worked a job that felt meaningless, because it was respectable. He attended church every week, even though the sermons made him feel hollow. And then, at 42 years old, James had a heart attack. Not a severe one, but severe enough to make him confront his mortality. Lying in the hospital bed, feeling the weight of his own fragility, James had a thought that terrified him. He thought, "I have never lived. I have only performed." In the months following his heart attack, James began to dismantle his life. He told his wife the truth, that he had never loved her, that he had married her out of obligation and guilt. She was devastated, but also in a strange way relieved. She admitted that she had known, on some level, that he was performing, that their entire marriage had been a performance. James left his job. He stopped attending church. He started therapy, real therapy, not the religious counseling that had only reinforced his guilt. And slowly, painfully, he began to discover who he actually was beneath the layers of performance and guilt. His family disowned him. His former friends called him selfish, said he was having a midlife crisis, said he had lost his way. But James felt, for the first time in his life, that he had found his way. He felt that he was finally living rather than performing. James's story is not a prescription. It is not a suggestion that everyone should blow up their lives and abandon their responsibilities. It is simply an illustration of what happens when the weight of moral performance becomes unbearable, when the guilt that maintains the theater finally breaks. And here is the crucial point. James did not become immoral when he stopped performing. He became more moral in a deeper sense, because his actions were no longer driven by guilt and fear and the need for approval. They were driven by genuine care, genuine consideration, genuine choice. He hurt people in the process of his transformation, yes, but he also stopped living a lie. And there is a morality in that, even if it does not fit the script society prefers. Now let us turn our attention to the audience itself. Who are these people who watch the moral theater, who applaud the heroes and condemn the villains? They are everyone. They are you. They are me. We are all, at various times, both actors and audience, both performers and judges. And here is what makes the theater so powerful. The audience is not passive. The audience participates. The audience enforces the rules. The audience punishes those who break character. The audience is, in many ways, more invested in the performance than the actors themselves. This is because being in the audience provides a psychological benefit. It allows you to feel moral without actually being moral. It allows you to judge others without examining yourself. It allows you to participate in the theater of righteousness without the risk of stepping onto the stage yourself. Consider social media, the modern coliseum of moral theater. Every day, millions of people participate in public shamings, in call-out culture, in the ritual condemnation of whoever has been designated as today's villain. They share posts, they write comments, they express their outrage and their moral superiority. And they feel good doing it. They feel like they are on the right side of history, like they are fighting for justice, like they are good people. But what are they actually doing? They are participating in a performance. They are playing their role in the theater. They are enforcing the script. And in doing so, they avoid examining their own behavior, their own shadows, their own complicity in systems of harm. This is not to say that all moral outrage is performative. Some injustices deserve outrage. Some villains deserve condemnation. But the question you must ask yourself is this: am I responding to genuine harm, or am I participating in theater? Am I acting from principle, or am I performing for an audience? Am I examining my own behavior, or am I projecting my shadow onto a convenient target? These are uncomfortable questions. They do not have easy answers. But they are necessary questions if you want to understand the theater rather than simply participate in it. There is a young woman named Alicia who became the target of online moral outrage. She had made a joke, a poorly thought out joke, that was interpreted as offensive. Within hours, thousands of people were calling for her to be fired, to be deplatformed, to be punished. They dug through her entire online history, looking for more evidence of her moral failings. They contacted her employer, her family, her friends. Alicia was 23 years old. She had made a mistake, a thoughtless comment born of ignorance rather than malice. But the audience did not care about context. They did not care about intention. They cared about the performance. They cared about demonstrating their own moral superiority by condemning her. Within a week, Alicia had lost her job. She received death threats. She developed severe anxiety and depression. She became, in the eyes of the internet, a villain. A cautionary tale. A person whose life could be destroyed as a form of entertainment and moral education. 3 years later, Alicia is still recovering. She changed her name. She moved to a different city. She struggles with trust, with self-worth, with the trauma of being publicly destroyed by thousands of strangers who knew nothing about her except a single moment taken out of context. And the people who participated in her destruction? Most of them have forgotten her. They have moved on to the next target, the next performance, the next opportunity to feel righteous. They do not think about the real human being whose life they helped destroy, because in the theater of morality, the actors are not real people. They are characters. They are symbols. They are vessels for the audience's need to feel good about themselves. This is the dark heart of moral theater. It dehumanizes. It reduces complex human beings to simple roles, to heroes and villains, to good and evil. And in doing so, it allows people to commit acts of cruelty while believing they are acting morally. Let us examine the concept of moral authority. Who gets to decide what is moral? Who gets to write the script? Who gets to cast the roles? In traditional societies, moral authority came from religion, from elders, from established hierarchies. The rules were clear, even if they were unjust. You knew your place. You knew your role. You knew what was expected of you. In modern societies, moral authority is more diffuse. It comes from media, from influencers, from peer groups, from shifting cultural norms. The rules are less clear, more contested, constantly changing. This creates anxiety. People do not know what role to play. They do not know which mask to wear. And into this anxiety steps a particular type of person, the moral entrepreneur, the person who claims to know what is right, who offers certainty in an uncertain world, who provides a script for others to follow. These moral entrepreneurs exist across the political spectrum. They are the religious leaders who claim to speak for God. They are the activists who claim to speak for the oppressed. They are the influencers who claim to speak for authenticity. They are the politicians who claim to speak for the people. And what they all have in common is this. They benefit from the theater. They gain power, status, money, influence by positioning themselves as moral authorities. They need the audience to believe in the performance. They need people to follow the script. Because if people stop believing, if people start questioning, the moral entrepreneurs lose their power. This is why moral entrepreneurs are often the most vicious in condemning those who break the script. Because every person who steps off the stage, every person who removes their mask, is a threat to the entire system. They are proof that the theater is optional, that the script can be rewritten. That moral authority is not natural or inevitable, but constructed and maintained through performance. There is a spiritual teacher, we will call him David, who built an empire on authenticity. He wrote books about being your true self, about removing masks, about living with integrity. He attracted thousands of followers who saw him as a beacon of genuine wisdom in a world of performance. But behind the scenes, David was as much a performer as anyone else. He carefully curated his image. He manipulated his followers emotionally and financially. He had affairs with students while preaching about sacred relationships. He lived in luxury while teaching about simplicity and non-attachment. When his behavior was finally exposed, his followers were devastated. Not just because he had betrayed them, but because he had shattered their belief in the possibility of authenticity. If even the teacher of authenticity was performing, then what hope was there for anyone else? But here is what David's followers missed. The lesson was not that authenticity is impossible. The lesson was that anyone who claims to have achieved perfect authenticity is performing. The lesson was that moral authority itself is suspect. The lesson was that you cannot outsource your moral development to a teacher, a leader, a script. You have to do the work yourself. And the work is not comfortable. The work requires examining your own shadows, your own hypocrisies, your own participation in the theater. The work requires admitting that you are not as good as you think you are, that you are not as authentic as you claim to be, that you too wear masks and play roles and manipulate others, even if you do not mean to. This is why most people avoid the work. It is easier to believe in the theater. It is easier to follow the script. It is easier to judge others than to examine yourself. It is easier to wear the mask than to face what lies beneath it. But the cost of this ease is your life. Not your biological life, but your authentic life. The life you could be living if you were not performing. The relationships you could be having if you were not wearing masks. The self you could be becoming if you were not playing a role. Let us now explore the relationship between morality and power. Because ultimately, that is what the theater is about. Power. Who has it, who wants it, and how it is maintained. Morality is one of the most effective tools of power ever invented. It is more effective than violence, more effective than law, more effective than economic control. Because morality operates internally. It makes people control themselves. It makes people police each other. It makes people willing participants in their own subjugation. When you convince someone that a behavior is immoral, you do not need to force them to stop that behavior. They will stop it themselves. They will feel guilty for even thinking about it. They will condemn others who engage in it. They will become enforcers of the rule, even if the rule does not serve them. This is why those in power are so invested in moral narratives. This is why they fund religious institutions, why they promote certain values through media and education, why they punish moral transgressions more harshly than legal ones. Because morality is the foundation of their power. Consider the concept of the Protestant work ethic. The idea that hard work is virtuous, that laziness is sinful, that your worth as a person is tied to your productivity. This moral framework serves a very specific function. It makes people willing to work long hours for low pay. It makes them feel guilty for resting, for taking time off, for prioritizing their own well-being over their employer's profit. And the brilliant part is that people internalize this morality. They do not see it as a tool of exploitation. They see it as virtue. They judge themselves and others based on productivity. They feel guilty when they are not working. They have become willing participants in a system that extracts their labor and their life force, all in the name of morality. Or consider the morality around obedience. Children are taught that obedience is good, that questioning authority is bad. This serves to create adults who do not challenge power structures, who follow orders, who accept hierarchy as natural and inevitable. The morality of obedience is the foundation of every authoritarian system, every oppressive regime, every institution that benefits from keeping people compliant. But here is the paradox. The people who benefit most from these moral systems are often the ones who follow them least. The wealthy preach the virtue of hard work while living off inherited wealth and passive income. The powerful preach the virtue of obedience while breaking rules with impunity. The moral entrepreneurs preach authenticity while performing constantly. This is not hypocrisy in the simple sense. This is strategy. This is understanding that morality is a tool, not a truth. This is knowing that the script is for the audience, not for the director. There is a CEO, we will call him Richard, who built a company worth billions of dollars. He is famous for his speeches about integrity, about treating employees like family, about building a company with soul. He has written books about ethical leadership. He is held up as an example of how to do business the right way. But inside his company, the reality is different. Employees are overworked and underpaid. They are fired without warning when they become inconvenient. They are pressured to prioritize company loyalty over their own health and families. And anyone who complains, anyone who questions, anyone who does not perform enthusiasm and gratitude is labeled as not a culture fit and pushed out. Richard knows exactly what he is doing. He understands that the moral performance is essential to his power. It attracts talented employees who want to believe they are working for something meaningful. It attracts customers who want to believe they are supporting an ethical company. It attracts investors who want to believe they are funding something more than just profit. The performance is the product. The morality is the marketing. And it works because people want to believe. They want to believe that there are good billionaires, that there are ethical corporations, that the system can work for everyone if only the right people are in charge. But the system is not broken. The system is working exactly as designed. It is designed to concentrate power in the hands of those who understand that morality is theater. It is designed to keep everyone else performing, believing, participating in their own exploitation. Now we must address the most uncomfortable question of all. If morality is theater, if it is performance and manipulation and power, then what? Does that mean nothing matters? Does that mean we should abandon all moral principles and embrace pure selfishness? Does that mean there is no difference between good and evil? No, that is not what it means. What it means is that we must develop a more sophisticated understanding of morality. We must distinguish between morality as social control and morality as genuine ethical consideration. We must learn to see the theater without becoming cynical. We must learn to navigate the performance without losing our humanity. This requires a fundamental shift in perspective. Instead of asking what is moral according to society, according to religion, according to the script, we must ask what causes harm and what reduces harm. Instead of performing goodness for an audience, we must cultivate genuine compassion, genuine consideration, genuine care. Instead of judging others based on their performance, we must try to understand the complexity of their circumstances, their shadows, their struggles. This is not moral relativism. This is not saying that all actions are equally valid. This is saying that morality is more complex than the theater allows. That human beings are more complex than the roles they play. That genuine ethics requires moving beyond performance and into authentic engagement with the messy reality of human existence. There is a concept in Buddhism called skillful action. It is not about following rules. It is not about performing virtue. It is about responding to each situation with wisdom and compassion, with an understanding of cause and effect, with a genuine desire to reduce suffering. Skillful action sometimes looks moral according to conventional standards. Sometimes it does not. Sometimes it requires breaking the script, removing the mask, stepping off the stage. Sometimes it requires disappointing the audience, accepting condemnation, bearing the weight of being misunderstood. There is a doctor named Maria who worked in a hospital in a conservative community. She was faced with a situation where a 14-year-old girl came to her, pregnant from rape, begging for an abortion. According to the laws and moral standards of the community, abortion was murder. According to the script Maria was supposed to follow, she should refuse, should counsel the girl to carry the pregnancy to term, should perform the role of the moral doctor who protects life. But Maria looked at this child, this traumatized 14-year-old, and saw the harm that would come from forcing her to continue the pregnancy. She saw the psychological damage, the physical risk, the destruction of this girl's future. And she made a choice. She performed the abortion. She broke the law. She stepped off the stage. Maria was arrested. She lost her medical license. She was condemned by her community, by her church, by people who had once respected her. She became, in the eyes of the moral theater, a villain, a murderer, a person who had betrayed her sacred duty. But Maria knew something the audience did not know. She knew that morality is not about following scripts. It is about reducing harm. It is about responding to the reality in front of you with compassion and wisdom, even when that response violates the performance everyone expects. Years later, that 14-year-old girl, now a woman, found Maria. She had gone to college, had built a career, had created a life that would have been impossible if she had been forced to continue that pregnancy. She thanked Maria. She told her that she had saved her life, not just physically, but in every way that mattered. And Maria, sitting across from this woman, felt something that the moral theater could never provide. She felt the quiet certainty that she had done the right thing, regardless of what the audience believed, regardless of what the script demanded, regardless of the cost to her own life and reputation. This is what genuine morality looks like. It is not performance. It is not comfortable. It is not applauded. It is the willingness to bear the weight of your choices, to act from genuine care rather than fear of judgment, to prioritize reducing harm over maintaining your image. But here is the challenge. Most people are not in situations as clear-cut as Maria's. Most moral decisions exist in gray areas, in situations where harm is inevitable no matter what you choose, where there is no obviously right answer, where you must act with incomplete information and uncertain outcomes. In these situations, the theater offers comfort. It offers clear rules, clear roles, clear scripts. It tells you what to do and assures you that if you follow the script, you are good. But this comfort is an illusion, Because following the script does not guarantee that you are reducing harm. It only guarantees that you are performing correctly. Genuine morality requires something much more difficult. It requires thinking for yourself. It requires examining each situation on its own terms. It requires being willing to be wrong, to make mistakes, to hurt people despite your best intentions. It requires accepting that you will sometimes be the villain in someone else's story, not because you are evil, but because you are human and human choices are complex. Let us return to the concept of the shadow, because it is central to understanding why the theater persists, why the audience believes the villain, why we are all complicit in the performance. The shadow is everything you have disowned about yourself. Every impulse you have labeled as bad, every desire you have suppressed, every aspect of your personality that does not fit the image you want to project. And the shadow does not disappear when you disown it. It simply operates unconsciously, influencing your behavior in ways you do not recognize. One of the primary ways the shadow operates is through projection. You see in others what you refuse to see in yourself. The person who is obsessed with other people's sexual morality is often suppressing their own sexual desires. The person who is constantly vigilant about other people's selfishness is often denying their own selfishness. The person who is quick to condemn others for their moral failings is often running from their own guilt. This is why the moral theater is so psychologically satisfying. It allows you to engage with your shadow without acknowledging it. You can experience your own darkness vicariously through the villains you condemn. You can feel morally superior while indulging in the pleasure of judgment, of cruelty, of destruction, all in the name of righteousness. This is not a conscious process. Most people who participate in moral theater genuinely believe they are acting from principle. They do not recognize that they are projecting their shadow. They do not see that their moral outrage is often disproportionate to the actual harm caused, that it is fueled by their own unexamined darkness. There is a man named Thomas who was raised in a household where anger was forbidden. His parents never fought, never raised their voices, never expressed any negative emotion. They prided themselves on being a peaceful, harmonious family. And Thomas learned that anger was bad, that it was something to be suppressed, something to be ashamed of. As an adult, Thomas became obsessed with social justice. He spent hours online, identifying and condemning people who said or did things he considered harmful. He was relentless in his pursuit of accountability, of calling out, of demanding that people be punished for their moral transgressions. Thomas believed he was fighting for justice. He believed he was making the world better. But what he did not recognize was that his activism was a way of expressing the anger he had suppressed his entire life. He was not actually interested in reducing harm or promoting understanding. He was interested in having a socially acceptable outlet for his rage. This is not to say that Thomas's concerns were invalid. Many of the things he called out were genuinely harmful. But his approach was not about healing or education or change. It was about punishment. It was about expressing his shadow through the mask of moral righteousness. And Thomas is not unique. This pattern repeats across every domain of moral theater. The person who crusades against drug use while being addicted to work, to food, to shopping, to any number of socially acceptable compulsions. The person who condemns others for their privilege while being blind to their own. The person who preaches compassion while being cruel to anyone who disagrees with them. The shadow loves morality, because morality provides the perfect disguise. It allows you to act out your darkness while believing you are acting from light. It allows you to harm others while believing you are helping. It allows you to avoid the painful work of self-examination by focusing all your attention on examining others. So what is the path forward? How do you navigate a world built on moral theater without becoming either a performer or a cynic? How do you develop genuine ethics in a society that rewards performance? The first step is awareness. You must learn to see the theater. You must learn to recognize the masks, the scripts, the performances, both in others and in yourself. This is not comfortable. It requires admitting that you too are performing, that you too wear masks, that you too have shadows you have not examined. The second step is integration. You must learn to acknowledge your shadow, to bring it into consciousness, to accept that you are not purely good or purely bad, but a complex mixture of light and dark, selfishness and compassion, wisdom and foolishness. This is not about indulging your shadow. It is about recognizing it so that it does not control you unconsciously. The third step is discernment. You must learn to distinguish between genuine harm and performance, between authentic ethics and moral theater, between actions that reduce suffering and actions that simply maintain the script. This requires thinking for yourself, questioning authority, being willing to stand alone when necessary. The fourth step is courage. You must be willing to step off the stage, to remove your mask, to face the consequences of authenticity. This does not mean being reckless or cruel. It means being honest, being real, being willing to disappoint the audience when the script demands that you betray yourself or harm others. And the fifth step is compassion. You must extend to others the same understanding you extend to yourself. You must recognize that everyone is struggling with their own shadows, their own masks, their own participation in the theater. You must learn to see the humanity beneath the performance, even in those you disagree with, even in those who have harmed you. This is not a linear process. It is not something you complete and then move on from. It is a lifelong practice, a constant negotiation between authenticity and social reality, between self and other, between principle and pragmatism. There is a woman named Sophia who has been practicing this path for 20 years. She is not perfect. She still wears masks sometimes. She still performs when the cost of authenticity feels too high. She still judges others, still projects her shadow, still participates in the theater. But she is aware of it. She catches herself. She examines her motivations. She apologizes when she realizes she has acted from shadow rather than consciousness. She is constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly trying to align her actions with her genuine values rather than with the script society provides. And here is what Sophia has discovered. The more authentic she becomes, the smaller her world gets in some ways and the larger it gets in others. She has fewer friends, but deeper friendships. She has less social approval, but more self-respect. She has less certainty about what is right and wrong, but more wisdom about how to navigate complexity. Sophia is not a hero. She is not a moral exemplar. She is simply a human being trying to live with integrity in a world built on performance. And that, perhaps, is the most radical act of all. Not performing heroism, but simply being human. Not claiming moral superiority, but simply doing the work of examining yourself and trying to reduce harm. We must now address the collective dimension of moral theater, because it is not just individuals who perform. Entire societies, entire cultures, entire nations engage in moral performance on a massive scale. Consider the concept of national identity. Every nation tells itself a story about who they are, what they stand for, what makes them good. America tells itself it is the land of freedom and opportunity. France tells itself it is the birthplace of enlightenment and human rights. Every nation has its founding myths, its moral narratives, its carefully constructed image. But beneath these narratives, beneath the performance, is a much messier reality. America was built on slavery and genocide. France maintained brutal colonial empires. Every nation that claims moral superiority has blood on its hands, has skeletons in its closet, has a shadow it refuses to acknowledge. And just like individuals, nations project their shadows onto other nations. They see in their enemies the darkness they refuse to see in themselves. They go to war not just for resources or power, but for moral reasons, to fight evil, to spread freedom, to protect the innocent. The performance is essential, because it allows people to participate in violence, in exploitation, in atrocity, while believing they are acting morally. This is not ancient history. This is happening right now, in every conflict, in every political debate, in every international crisis. Nations perform morality while acting from self-interest. They condemn in others what they practice themselves. They demand accountability from their enemies while granting impunity to their allies. And the citizens of these nations, the audience, participate in the performance. They wave flags, they support wars, they believe the narratives they are told, because believing is easier than examining. Because questioning your nation's morality feels like betrayal. Because the theater of national identity provides meaning, belonging, purpose. There is a soldier named Michael who served in a war that was sold to the public as a moral necessity, as a fight against evil, as a mission to bring freedom to an oppressed people. Michael believed this narrative. He enlisted because he wanted to be a hero, to serve a cause greater than himself, to be part of the moral theater his nation was performing. But when Michael arrived in the war zone, he encountered a reality that did not match the script. He saw that the people he was supposed to be liberating often saw him as an invader. He saw that the enemy he was supposed to be fighting was often indistinguishable from the civilians he was supposed to be protecting. He saw that the moral clarity he had been promised was an illusion, that war was not a theater of good versus evil, but a chaotic mess of competing interests, tragic choices, and unavoidable harm. Michael did things in that war that haunt him. He followed orders that resulted in civilian deaths. He participated in actions that, if he is honest with himself, were not about protecting anyone but about maintaining control, about projecting power, about serving interests that had nothing to do with morality. When Michael returned home, he was celebrated as a hero. People thanked him for his service. They told him he had fought for freedom. They performed gratitude and respect. But Michael felt like a fraud, because he knew the truth. He knew that the war had not been what they said it was. He knew that he had not been a hero, but a participant in a tragedy that should never have happened. Michael tried to speak about this. He tried to tell people what he had seen, what he had done, what the war had actually been like. But people did not want to hear it. They wanted the performance. They wanted the hero narrative. They wanted to believe that their nation was good, that the war had been necessary, that the sacrifice had been meaningful. And so Michael learned to perform. He learned to play the role of the grateful veteran, the hero who had served his country. He learned to keep his truth to himself, to wear the mask, to participate in the theater. Because the cost of authenticity was too high. The cost was being seen as ungrateful, as unpatriotic, as a traitor to the narrative. This is the power of collective moral theater. It is not just about individual performance. It is about entire societies agreeing to believe a story, to maintain an illusion, to punish anyone who breaks the spell. And the cost of this collective performance is truth. The cost is accountability. The cost is the ability to learn from mistakes, to acknowledge harm, to change course. Let us examine the role of language in moral theater. Because language is not neutral. Language shapes perception. Language creates reality. And those who control language control the theater. Consider how moral language is used to justify harm. Torture becomes enhanced interrogation. Civilian deaths become collateral damage. Exploitation becomes opportunity. Surveillance becomes security. Every atrocity, every injustice, every act of violence is wrapped in language that obscures its reality, that makes it palatable, that allows people to participate without feeling like villains. This is not accidental. This is strategy. This is understanding that if you can control how people talk about something, you can control how they think about it. If you can frame your actions in moral language, you can commit harm while maintaining the appearance of virtue. There is a corporation, we will call it Apex Industries, that manufactures weapons. They sell these weapons to governments around the world, including governments that use them to suppress dissent, to commit human rights abuses, to wage wars of aggression. Apex Industries profits enormously from violence and suffering. But if you visit their website, if you read their mission statement, if you listen to their CEO speak, you will hear a very different story. You will hear about security, about protecting freedom, about supporting brave men and women who defend democracy. You will hear moral language, carefully crafted to obscure the reality of what they do. And this language works. It allows the employees of Apex Industries to go to work every day without feeling like they are contributing to suffering. It allows investors to profit from violence without examining their complicity. It allows politicians to accept campaign donations without acknowledging that they are being paid by merchants of death. The language creates a moral performance that everyone can participate in. The engineers who design the weapons can tell themselves they are creating security. The salespeople who sell the weapons can tell themselves they are supporting defense. The executives who profit from the weapons can tell themselves they are running a legitimate business. Everyone gets to wear a mask. Everyone gets to avoid looking at the shadow. This pattern repeats across every industry, every institution, every system that causes harm while claiming to do good. The language of morality is used to obscure reality, to maintain performance, to allow people to participate in systems of harm without feeling like villains. And here is the insidious part. Once you learn to see through the language, once you recognize the performance, you cannot unsee it. You start to notice it everywhere. In political speeches, in corporate communications, in social media posts, in everyday conversations. You start to see how language is used to manipulate, to obscure, to maintain the theater. This awareness is both liberating and isolating. Liberating because you are no longer fooled by the performance. Isolating because most people are still invested in the theater, still believe the language, still participate in the illusion. And when you point out the performance, when you use different language, when you name the reality beneath the mask, people often react with hostility. Because you are threatening the theater. You are breaking the spell. You are forcing them to see what they have been avoiding. Now we must confront the most difficult aspect of moral theater. The fact that you cannot simply opt out. You cannot simply remove all your masks and live in pure authenticity, because you exist in relationship with others. You exist in societies that demand performance. You exist in systems that punish those who refuse to play their roles. This is the tragedy of moral theater. Even when you see it, even when you understand it, you are still trapped in it to some degree. You still have to navigate social expectations. You still have to make compromises. You still have to wear masks sometimes, not because you want to, but because the cost of not wearing them is too high. This is not a failure. This is simply the reality of being human in a social world. The question is not whether you perform, but how consciously you perform. The question is not whether you wear masks, but whether you know you are wearing them. The question is not whether you participate in the theater, but whether you are aware of your participation and make conscious choices about when and how to perform. There is a transgender woman named Alex who understands this complexity intimately. Alex knows that her very existence challenges the moral theater of gender. She knows that simply by being herself, she threatens the script that says there are only two genders, that gender is determined by biology, that deviation from gender norms is immoral or unnatural. Alex has faced violence, discrimination, rejection from family and friends, all because she refused to perform the gender role she was assigned at birth. She has been called immoral, unnatural, a threat to children, a destroyer of society. She has been cast as a villain in the moral theater of gender. But here is the complexity. Alex also performs. She performs femininity in ways that feel authentic to her, but she is aware that femininity itself is a performance, a set of behaviors and presentations that society has coded as female. She wears makeup, she styles her hair, she chooses her clothes carefully. Not because these things are inherently female, but because performing femininity helps her navigate a world that judges women by their appearance, that questions the validity of trans women who do not perform femininity convincingly enough. Alex is caught between authenticity and survival. She wants to simply be herself, but being herself requires performing in ways that society will recognize and accept. She wants to challenge the gender binary, but challenging it too directly puts her at risk. She wants to live without masks, but the world demands that she wear them. This is the reality for anyone who exists outside the dominant scripts. For people of color in white-dominated societies, for queer people in heteronormative cultures, for disabled people in a world built for able bodies. For anyone whose very existence challenges the moral theater, survival often requires performance. It requires code-switching, masking, playing roles that feel inauthentic but are necessary for safety, for employment, for basic social acceptance. And this creates a painful double bind. If you perform, you betray yourself. If you do not perform, you face consequences that can range from social exclusion to violence to death. There is no pure choice. There is no option that does not involve compromise, that does not involve some degree of participation in the theater you wish to dismantle. This is why individual authenticity, while important, is not enough. Because the theater is not just individual. It is structural. It is embedded in laws, in institutions, in cultural norms, in the very language we use to describe reality. And changing these structures requires collective action, requires organizing, requires strategy that goes beyond personal authenticity. But here is the paradox. Collective action also requires performance. It requires creating narratives, building movements, presenting a unified front. It requires, in essence, creating a new theater, a counter-theater that challenges the dominant scripts but is still a performance nonetheless. This is not a reason to give up. This is simply a recognition that the work of creating a more authentic world is complex. It requires operating on multiple levels simultaneously. It requires individual shadow work and collective organizing. It requires authenticity and strategy. It requires seeing the theater and participating in it consciously, with awareness of what you are doing and why. Let us now examine the relationship between moral theater and trauma. Because much of what we call morality is actually a response to trauma, an attempt to create safety, to prevent harm, to control an unpredictable world. When you experience trauma, especially in childhood, you learn that the world is dangerous. You learn that you must be vigilant, that you must control your behavior and the behavior of others, that you must follow rules to stay safe. And often these rules become moralized. They become not just strategies for safety, but absolute truths about right and wrong. This is why people who have experienced trauma are often the most rigid in their moral beliefs. Not because they are bad people, but because their nervous system has learned that deviation from the rules equals danger. Their morality is not about abstract principles. It is about survival. There is a woman named Rachel who grew up in a chaotic household. Her father was an alcoholic who became violent when he drank. Her mother was emotionally unstable, oscillating between smothering affection and cold rejection. Rachel never knew what to expect. She never felt safe. As a child, Rachel developed a rigid set of rules for herself. She had to be perfect. She had to anticipate everyone's needs. She had to control her environment as much as possible. These rules helped her survive her childhood. They gave her a sense of control in a chaotic world. As an adult, Rachel carried these rules with her. She became obsessed with order, with correctness, with following protocols. She judged herself harshly for any mistake, any deviation from her internal standards. And she judged others just as harshly. She could not tolerate messiness, unpredictability, or rule-breaking in any form. Rachel believed her rigidity was morality. She believed she was simply holding herself and others to high standards. But what she did not recognize was that her morality was trauma. It was her nervous system's attempt to create safety by controlling everything and everyone around her. This made Rachel's relationships difficult. People felt judged by her, controlled by her, unable to be themselves around her. And Rachel felt constantly disappointed by others, constantly let down by their failure to meet her standards. She was lonely, anxious, exhausted from the constant effort of maintaining control. It was only when Rachel began trauma therapy, when she started to understand the origins of her rigidity, that she began to soften. She began to see that her morality was not about right and wrong, but about fear. She began to recognize that her need to control others was not about helping them, but about managing her own anxiety. This recognition did not happen overnight. It was a slow, painful process of examining her beliefs, her behaviors, her automatic responses. It required feeling the fear beneath the morality, the vulnerability beneath the control, the trauma beneath the performance. And as Rachel healed, her morality changed. She became less rigid, less judgmental, more compassionate. Not because she abandoned her principles, but because she developed principles based on genuine care rather than fear. She learned to distinguish between rules that actually prevent harm and rules that simply make her feel safe. Rachel's story illustrates an important point. Much of what passes for morality in our society is actually unhealed trauma. It is people trying to control an uncontrollable world, trying to prevent harm by creating rigid rules, trying to feel safe by judging and condemning anything that feels threatening. This is not to say that all morality is trauma, but it is to say that we must examine the origins of our moral beliefs. We must ask ourselves, am I acting from genuine ethical consideration, or am I acting from fear? Am I trying to reduce harm, or am I trying to control others to manage my own anxiety? Am I responding to the present situation, or am I reacting to past trauma? These are difficult questions. They require honesty, self-awareness, and a willingness to feel uncomfortable emotions. But they are necessary questions if we want to develop genuine ethics rather than simply performing morality as a defense against our own pain. We must also examine the role of shame in moral theater, because shame is the emotion that keeps the theater running. Shame is what makes you perform. Shame is what makes you wear masks. Shame is what makes you hide your shadow and project it onto others. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Guilt can be productive. It can motivate you to make amends, to change your behavior, to take responsibility. But shame is toxic. Shame does not motivate change. It motivates hiding, performing, pretending to be something you are not. And moral theater runs on shame. From childhood, you are taught to feel ashamed of certain aspects of yourself. Your body, your desires, your emotions, your needs. You are taught that these things are bad, that they make you bad, that you must hide them to be acceptable. This shame becomes the foundation of your moral performance. You perform goodness not because you genuinely care about reducing harm, but because you are terrified of being exposed as bad. You judge others not because their behavior is actually harmful, but because seeing their shameful behavior triggers your own shame, reminds you of the parts of yourself you are trying to hide. There is a man named Kevin who grew up in a religious community that taught him to be ashamed of his sexuality. He was taught that sexual desire was sinful, that masturbation was evil, that any sexual thought outside of marriage was a moral failing. Kevin internalized this shame deeply. He believed that his sexuality made him bad, that he was fundamentally flawed, that he needed to constantly fight against his own nature. As an adult, Kevin became a vocal advocate for sexual purity. He gave talks at churches about the dangers of pornography, the importance of abstinence, the moral decay of modern sexuality. He was praised for his commitment, for his moral strength, for his willingness to speak difficult truths. But privately, Kevin was struggling. He was addicted to pornography. He was consumed by sexual thoughts that he could not control. He was living a double life, performing purity in public while drowning in shame in private. And the more he performed, the more shame he felt. And the more shame he felt, the more rigidly he performed. Eventually, Kevin's double life was exposed. Someone discovered his browsing history and made it public. Kevin's reputation was destroyed. His community rejected him. He lost his position, his credibility, his identity as a moral leader. But something unexpected happened in the aftermath. As Kevin sat in the ruins of his performance, as he faced the shame he had been running from his entire life, he began to heal. He began to see that his sexuality was not evil. It was simply human. He began to understand that the shame he had been taught was not truth. It was a tool of control. Kevin stopped performing. He stopped trying to be pure. He stopped judging others for their sexuality. And slowly, painfully, he began to develop a healthier relationship with his own desires, his own body, his own humanity. Kevin's story is repeated across every domain where shame is used to control behavior. The person who is ashamed of their body becomes obsessed with diet culture and judges others for their weight. The person who is ashamed of their emotions becomes stoic and judges others for their sensitivity. The person who is ashamed of their needs becomes self-sufficient to the point of isolation and judges others for their dependence. Shame creates moral theater, and moral theater reinforces shame. It is a vicious cycle that can only be broken by bringing shame into consciousness, by examining where it came from, by questioning whether it serves any genuine ethical purpose or simply serves to control and diminish. Now let us explore the concept of moral injury. This is a term that originated in the context of war, describing the psychological damage that occurs when you are forced to participate in actions that violate your moral beliefs. But moral injury is not limited to war. It happens whenever there is a disconnect between your genuine values and the actions you are required to perform. Healthcare workers experience moral injury when they are forced to prioritize profit over patient care. Teachers experience moral injury when they are forced to teach to standardized tests rather than educating whole human beings. Social workers experience moral injury when they are forced to enforce policies that harm the people they are trying to help. Moral injury occurs when the theater demands that you perform actions that violate your authentic ethics. And the damage is profound. It creates a split in your psyche, a disconnect between who you are and what you do. It creates shame, guilt, despair, a sense that you have betrayed yourself and others. There is a nurse named Patricia who worked in a for-profit hospital. Patricia became a nurse because she wanted to help people, to provide care, to reduce suffering. But the hospital she worked for was more interested in profit than in patient care. She was given too many patients to care for adequately. She was pressured to discharge patients before they were ready. She was told to prioritize procedures that generated revenue over treatments that actually helped. Patricia tried to resist. She tried to advocate for her patients, but she was told that if she could not follow the protocols, she would be fired. And Patricia needed the job. She had student loans, a mortgage, a family to support. So she complied. She performed the role of the efficient nurse, even when it meant providing inadequate care, even when it meant watching patients suffer because the hospital would not allocate resources for their treatment. Every day, Patricia went home feeling like she had betrayed her patients, betrayed her profession, betrayed herself. She developed insomnia, anxiety, depression. She started drinking to numb the pain. She became cynical, bitter, disconnected from the compassion that had drawn her to nursing in the first place. This is moral injury. This is what happens when you are forced to participate in a system that violates your values, when you are required to perform actions that harm others, when the theater demands that you betray your authentic ethics. And the insidious part is that the system blames you for your suffering. It tells you that you are not resilient enough, that you need to practice better self-care, that you should be grateful for your job. It individualizes a structural problem. It makes you feel like your moral injury is your personal failure, rather than a predictable outcome of being forced to participate in an immoral system. Healing from moral injury requires more than individual therapy. It requires acknowledging that the system is broken, that you are not the problem, that your suffering is a rational response to being forced to violate your values. It requires, in many cases, leaving the system, refusing to perform, accepting the consequences of authenticity. But not everyone can leave. Not everyone has the resources, the support, the options to simply walk away from a job or a system that is causing moral injury. And so they continue to perform, continue to suffer, continue to split themselves between who they are and what they do. This is one of the cruelest aspects of moral theater. It forces people to choose between survival and integrity. It punishes those who refuse to perform. It damages those who comply. And it maintains itself by individualizing the harm, by making each person feel like their suffering is their own fault rather than a systemic problem. Let us now examine the relationship between moral theater and love. Because love, genuine love, is perhaps the greatest threat to the theater. Love sees beneath the masks. Love accepts the shadow. Love does not require performance. But the theater has colonized love as well. It has created scripts for how love should look, how it should be expressed, what it should feel like. It has turned love into a performance, complete with prescribed roles, expected behaviors, and moral judgments about what counts as real love and what does not. Consider romantic love. You are taught that romantic love should be passionate, exclusive, permanent. You are taught that if you truly love someone, you will want to spend all your time with them. You will never be attracted to anyone else. You will stay together forever. These are not descriptions of love. These are scripts. And they set people up for failure, for shame, for the belief that their love is not real if it does not match the performance. There is a couple, we will call them Emma and Daniel, who have been together for 15 years. They love each other deeply. They have built a life together, raised children together, supported each other through countless challenges. But their love does not look like the script. They are not passionate in the way romantic movies portray passion. They do not have intense sexual chemistry. They do not spend all their time together. They have separate interests, separate friends, separate lives in many ways. And sometimes they are attracted to other people. According to the script of romantic love, this means their relationship is failing. It means they have fallen out of love. It means they should either reignite the passion or end the relationship. But Emma and Daniel know something different. They know that their love is real, even if it does not perform correctly. They know that companionship, respect, commitment, and genuine care are forms of love, even if they are not dramatic or exciting. But they cannot say this publicly. They cannot admit that they sometimes find other people attractive, that they do not have passionate sex, that they sometimes prefer to spend time apart. Because admitting these things would be seen as a betrayal of the romantic love script. People would judge their relationship, would question whether they should stay together, would project their own fears and insecurities onto Emma and Daniel's honest acknowledgement of their reality. So Emma and Daniel perform. They post romantic photos on social media. They talk about their relationship in ways that match the script. They wear the masks of the happily married couple. Not because they are unhappy, but because their happiness does not look like what society expects happiness to look like. This is what the theater does to love. It makes you perform rather than simply loving. It makes you question whether your love is real if it does not match the script. It makes you hide the truth of your relationships, the messy, complicated, imperfect reality of loving another human being. And this performance damages relationships. Because when you are performing, you are not being authentic. When you are wearing masks, you are not being seen. When you are following scripts, you are not responding to the actual person in front of you. Genuine love requires removing the masks. It requires showing your shadow and accepting your partner's shadow. It requires admitting that you are not perfect, that your relationship is not perfect, that love is not a fairy tale, but a daily practice of choosing each other despite. There is a stage you cannot see, but you stand upon it every single day. The lights are always on. The audience never leaves. And you, whether you know it or not, are performing. This is not a metaphor. This is the architecture of human civilization. Morality is not a compass. It is not a truth written in the stars or carved into the bones of the earth. Morality is a script. And like all scripts, it was written by someone with an agenda. You were taught to believe in good and evil as if they were forces of nature, immutable and eternal. But if you pause, if you truly pause and look beneath the surface of every moral proclamation you've ever heard, you will find something far more unsettling. You will find theater. You will find performance. You will find masks so convincing that even the actors forget they are acting. The villain in this theater is not who you think. The villain is the one the audience believes. The one who plays the role so perfectly that no one questions the script. And the most dangerous part? The villain often believes their own performance. They have convinced themselves that the mask is their face. This is the world you inhabit, a world where morality is the stage, society is the audience, and every single person you meet is both actor and spectator, judge and judged, hero and villain, sometimes within the span of a single breath. Before we continue, a warning. The knowledge that's about to be shared cannot be unlearned. It will permanently change the way you see human relationships. If you're ready to abandon comfortable illusions and see what's behind the stage, subscribe now. Because this isn't just a video. It's the beginning of your journey under the mask. Now let us begin. Picture a child, no more than 7 years old, standing in a kitchen. The air smells of burnt toast and disappointment. The child's mother is crying, but quietly, the kind of crying that happens when you've learned that loud emotions are punished. The father sits at the table, newspaper in hand, silent. The child watches both of them and learns the first lesson of moral theater. Silence is complicity. Tears are weakness. And the person who controls their expression controls the room. The child does not yet have the language for what they are witnessing, but their nervous system is recording every detail. The tension in the mother's shoulders. The deliberate rustle of the newspaper, timed perfectly to drown out a sob. The way the father's jaw tightens, not with anger, but with satisfaction. He is winning a game the child cannot yet name. Years later, this child will grow into an adult who understands power not as force, but as performance. They will learn that morality is not about being good. It is about appearing good to the right people at the right time. They will learn that the villain is not the one who does harm. The villain is the one who gets caught, the one who fails to control the narrative, the one whose mask slips at the wrong moment. This is not cynicism. This is observation. This is what happens when you stop listening to what people say and start watching what they do. When you stop believing in the script and start studying the stage. Society teaches you morality through stories. The hero saves the village. The villain burns it down. The hero is selfless. The villain is selfish. The hero sacrifices. The villain takes. These stories are so deeply embedded in your consciousness that you never question them. You never ask who wrote them. You never ask why. But if you dig beneath the surface, if you examine the bones of these moral tales, you find something remarkable. You find that every moral system ever created serves one primary function. Control. Not control of behavior, necessarily, but control of perception. Control of the narrative. Control of who gets to decide what good and evil mean. Consider the concept of selflessness. You are taught from birth that selflessness is virtuous. To give without expecting return. To sacrifice your needs for others. To put yourself last. This sounds beautiful. It sounds noble. But watch what happens when you practice it. Watch who benefits. There is a woman, let's call her Elena, who spent 30 years of her life being selfless. She raised 4 children, cared for aging parents, supported a husband through career changes and personal crises. She never complained. She never asked for anything in return. She wore the mask of the selfless mother, the devoted wife, the dutiful daughter. And society applauded her. They called her a saint. They held her up as an example of moral virtue. But inside, beneath the mask, Elena was disappearing. Her desires, her dreams, her very sense of self eroded year by year, sacrifice by sacrifice. And when she finally, at 53 years old, said the word no for the first time in decades, when she chose herself for once, society turned on her with a viciousness that took her breath away. Her children called her selfish. Her husband called her cruel. Her friends whispered that she was having a breakdown, that she had changed, that she was no longer the woman they knew. And they were right. She was no longer that woman. She had removed the mask. And the audience hated her for it. This is the truth about moral theater. The audience does not want authenticity. The audience wants performance. They want you to play your role. And if your role is selfless martyr, then you must suffer beautifully, quietly, without ever demanding that the script be rewritten. Elena's story is not unique. It is the story of every person who has ever been punished for stepping out of their assigned moral role. The mother who chooses career over children. The man who cries in public. The employee who refuses to work unpaid overtime. The friend who sets boundaries. These people are not immoral. They are simply refusing to perform. And in the theater of society, refusing to perform is the greatest sin. Now let us examine the other side of this stage. Let us look at the villains who win. The ones the audience believes. The ones who understand that morality is not about being good, but about appearing good. There is a man, we'll call him Marcus, who runs a non-profit organization. On paper, his life is dedicated to helping others. He raises millions of dollars for children in poverty. He gives speeches about compassion and social responsibility. He is photographed with celebrities and politicians, always smiling, always humble, always wearing the mask of the benevolent philanthropist. But behind closed doors, Marcus is a tyrant. He underpays his staff and demands they work 80-hour weeks. He takes credit for their ideas. He fires anyone who questions him. He uses the nonprofit's funds for personal luxuries, always careful to stay just within legal boundaries. He manipulates donors with emotional stories, some of which are exaggerated, some of which are entirely fabricated. And yet, Marcus is celebrated. He wins awards. He is invited to speak at conferences. He is held up as a moral exemplar. Why? Because he understands the theater. He knows that morality is not measured by private actions, but by public performance. He knows that the audience cannot see backstage. They only see what he shows them. And what he shows them is a carefully crafted character, a role played so convincingly that even those who suffer under him sometimes doubt their own perceptions. This is the power of moral theater. The villain who masters performance becomes the hero. The hero who refuses to perform becomes the villain. And the audience, the great mass of society, applauds or condemns based not on truth, but on spectacle. You might be thinking this is too cynical. Surely some people are genuinely good. Surely morality means something beyond performance. And you would be partially right. There are people who act with genuine compassion, who help others without seeking recognition, who live according to principles rather than appearances. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Those people are rarely celebrated. They are rarely visible. Because genuine goodness does not seek the stage. It does not perform. And in a society built on theater, invisibility is irrelevance. The moral exemplars you are shown, the ones held up as models of virtue, are almost always performers. They have to be, because to become visible, to become celebrated, requires understanding the audience. It requires knowing which mask to wear and when to wear it. It requires, in essence, manipulation. This is not a condemnation. This is simply how the system works. Morality, as a social construct, is inseparable from performance. And performance is inseparable from manipulation. To be seen as good, you must convince others of your goodness. And convincing others requires strategy, presentation, and yes, a degree of deception. Let us go deeper. Let us examine why the audience believes the villain. Why the performance is more convincing than the truth. Why society's theater operates on illusion rather than reality. The answer lies in a fundamental aspect of human psychology. People do not want truth. They want comfort. They want stories that confirm what they already believe. They want villains who are obviously villainous and heroes who are obviously heroic. They want a world that makes sense, even if that world is a fiction. When someone plays the role of villain perfectly, when they embody all the traits society has agreed to condemn, the audience feels relief. They can point and say, there is the bad person. There is the source of the problem. And by identifying the villain, they absolve themselves. They are not the villain. They are the audience. They are the judges. They are by default the good ones. This is why moral panic spreads so quickly. This is why witch hunts happen. This is why entire communities can turn against a single person with terrifying speed and unity. Because having a clear villain is psychologically satisfying. It creates order out of chaos. It gives people a target for their fear, their anger, their own unexamined darkness. And the person who understands this, who can position someone else as the villain while maintaining their own mask of virtue, wields enormous power. They become the director of the theater. They control the narrative. They decide who the audience condemns and who the audience celebrates. There is a small town, somewhere in the American Midwest, where this dynamic played out with devastating clarity. A teacher, a woman named Sarah, was accused of inappropriate behavior with a student. The accusation came from a parent, a man named Robert, who was well known in the community. Robert was a church leader, a business owner, a pillar of respectability. When he made the accusation, the town believed him immediately. Sarah denied it. She provided evidence of her innocence. She had witnesses who could account for her whereabouts. But none of it mattered, because Robert had already cast her as the villain. He had already told the story, and the story was more powerful than the facts. Within weeks, Sarah lost her job. Her friends stopped calling. Her neighbors avoided eye contact. She received threatening messages. Someone spray-painted her house. The theater of morality had condemned her, and the audience participated with enthusiasm. 2 years later, the truth emerged. The accusation had been fabricated. Robert's own son, the alleged victim, came forward and admitted that his father had pressured him to lie. Robert had been having an affair with another teacher, and Sarah had discovered it. The accusation was retaliation, a preemptive strike to destroy her credibility before she could expose him. When the truth came out, you might expect the town to rally around Sarah, to apologize, to make amends. But that is not what happened. Instead, there was silence. Uncomfortable, guilty silence. Because admitting they had been wrong would require admitting they had participated in destroying an innocent person. It would require examining their own willingness to believe, their own eagerness to condemn, their own complicity in the theater. Some people apologized privately. Most simply pretended it had never happened. And Robert? He moved to another town, where no one knew his story, and started over. The mask intact. The performance ready to begin again. This is the mechanics of moral theater. The villain who controls the narrative wins. The innocent who cannot perform convincingly loses. And the audience, the great mass of society, moves on to the next show, the next scandal, the next opportunity to feel righteous without examining their own shadows. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow, the part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. The desires we condemn, the impulses we suppress, the aspects of our personality that do not fit the image we want to project. Jung understood that the shadow does not disappear when we ignore it. It simply operates beneath consciousness, influencing our behavior in ways we do not recognize. And here is where moral theater becomes truly dangerous. Because the shadow loves the theater. The shadow loves to project itself onto others, to see in them the darkness we refuse to see in ourselves. This is why the most vocal moral crusaders are so often revealed to be hypocrites. The politician who campaigns against infidelity while having affairs. The religious leader who preaches purity while abusing children. The activist who condemns greed while embezzling funds. These are not anomalies. These are predictable outcomes of a system that rewards performance over authenticity. When you build your identity on a moral mask, when you define yourself by what you are not rather than what you are, the shadow grows stronger. It demands expression, and eventually it finds a way out. But here is the truly insidious part. Even when the mask slips, even when the hypocrisy is exposed, the theater continues. Because the audience needs villains, and a fallen hero makes for excellent drama. The person is condemned, removed from the stage, and replaced. The system remains intact. The performance goes on. There is no escape from this theater as long as you remain unconscious of it. As long as you believe that morality is about being good rather than appearing good, you will be manipulated by those who understand the difference. You will be the audience, applauding and condemning on cue, never realizing that you are part of the show. But what happens when you wake up? What happens when you see the theater for what it is? What happens when you recognize the masks, including your own? This is where the journey becomes dangerous. Because once you see the performance, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand that morality is theater, you face a choice. Do you continue to perform, now with full awareness of the manipulation? Do you remove your mask and face the consequences? Or do you find some third path, some way to navigate the theater without being consumed by it? There is a woman named Diana who discovered the theater at 39 years old. She had spent her entire adult life playing the role of the good person. She volunteered at homeless shelters. She donated to charities. She was kind to everyone she met. She never gossiped. She never complained. She was, by all external measures, a moral exemplar. But inside, Diana was exhausted. She was exhausted from the constant performance, from the pressure to always be kind, always be understanding, always be selfless. She was exhausted from suppressing her anger, her resentment, her very human desire to sometimes be selfish, to sometimes say no, to sometimes prioritize her own needs. And then one day something shifted. She was at a charity gala, surrounded by wealthy people congratulating each other for their generosity, and she felt a wave of disgust so powerful it nearly knocked her over. She looked around the room and suddenly saw the theater. She saw the masks. She saw the performance. She saw that everyone there, including herself, was playing a role. They were not there to help the poor. They were there to be seen helping the poor. They were there to maintain their image, to network, to feel good about themselves without actually changing anything fundamental about the system that created poverty in the first place. Diana left the gala early. She went home and sat in the dark, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Everything she had believed about morality, about goodness, about her own identity, suddenly seemed like a lie. Not a malicious lie, but a lie nonetheless. A story she had been told and had told herself over and over, until she forgot it was a story. In the weeks that followed, Diana went through what can only be described as a moral crisis. She stopped volunteering. She stopped donating. She stopped performing. And the response from her community was immediate and harsh. People who had praised her for years suddenly questioned her character. They asked if she was okay, but the subtext was clear. They were asking if she was still one of them, if she was still playing by the rules.